Beloved, wealth is not a mystery locked in some distant place. It is a pattern, a principle, a law that responds to understanding. The first secret you must embrace is that wealth begins in the mind. A man whose thoughts are limited will always live in limitation, no matter what is placed in his hands. Renew your thinking. See abundance. Speak abundance. Believe that increase is possible, and the journey begins there. Secondly, money is not chased. It is attracted by value. Every coin and every note in circulation is a certificate of reward for solving problems. When you decide to sharpen your gifts, develop skills, and serve humanity with excellence, you position yourself for wealth. People will always exchange money for solutions, and those who understand this never struggle for long. But wealth is not sustained by value alone. It requires discipline. Without the ability to manage resources, even abundance will disappear. Wealthy men and women are not necessarily those who earn the most, but those who can govern their appetites, control spending, and channel resources into productive ventures. What you cannot control will eventually control you. Then understand that relationships are currencies. Many doors you desire will not open to your talent alone, but through people. Learn to honor men, serve faithfully, and build alliances. Wealth often moves through channels of trust, and trust is built in the soil of character. In your pursuit, never forget the power of knowledge. Ignorance is more expensive than failure. When you invest in learning, financial principles, investment strategies, and wisdom from those ahead of you, you shorten your journey. The wealthy are learners, and learners eventually become leaders in their field. Yet wealth requires patience. Do not despise the days of small beginnings. The seed you plant today may not yield tomorrow, but with diligence and time it must produce. Wealth is not for the hasty, it is for the consistent. Finally, remember that true wealth transcends personal luxury. The highest dimension of wealth is impact, when your resources feed the hungry, educate the child, and transform communities. Wealth without purpose leaves emptiness, but wealth with purpose multiplies legacy. Therefore, the secret to getting wealth is not one thing. It is a combination of mindset, value, discipline, relationships, knowledge, consistency, and purpose. Align with these and the flow of abundance will not only visit you, it will remain with you. Wealth is one of the most discussed subjects in the world, yet many never truly understand its secret because they chase shadows instead of aligning with principles. And the first principle is that wealth is born in the mind long before it manifests in the hands. Meaning, if a man continues to think small, live in fear, and see himself as incapable, no amount of external resources can make him truly wealthy. For wealth responds to a renewed mindset that believes in possibilities and abundance. The second principle is that money is not pursued but attracted through value, because every note you see is evidence that someone somewhere provided a solution, met a need, or created something people were willing to exchange their money for. And if you cultivate your gifts, polish your skills, and commit to serving with excellence, people will gladly reward you with resources. And this is why many struggle, not because opportunities are absent, but because they have not developed themselves into valuable vessels. Yet even when resources come, without discipline, wealth leaks away. For history is full of men who earned millions, yet died poor because they could not govern their appetites, control their spending, or manage what they had, proving that true wealth is not just about acquisition, but preservation and multiplication. And this discipline includes budgeting, saving, investing, and learning delayed gratification. Beyond discipline, relationships are doors to wealth because every breakthrough is tied to people, and access to the right voices can open opportunities years of labor may never achieve. But such relationships are built on honor, trust, service, and genuine character, because money flows where trust resides, and when you build alliances, you build invisible bridges to resources. However, knowledge remains a force that cannot be ignored, for ignorance is more expensive than failure, and what you do not know will keep you poor even if resources come your way, which is why the wealthy read, study, seek mentors, and learn financial principles and investment strategies, because money in the hands of the ignorant is like water in a basket, it will always slip away. And though many crave overnight success, wealth obeys the law of patience because it is a journey of process, discipline, and time. And if you despise the small beginnings and faint in consistency, you abort the growth that compounds into greatness. For every seed planted today grows silently before showing visibly. And so it is with wealth. Finally, beyond the accumulation of resources lies the higher dimension of purpose, because true wealth is never about cars, houses, or luxury alone, but about impact, feeding the hungry, educating the child, building systems that outlive you, and transforming lives. For wealth without purpose creates emptiness and vanity, but wealth used for a higher good multiplies joy, fulfillment, and legacy. And so when you understand that the secret of wealth is not a single hidden formula but a combination of right mindset, value creation, discipline, strategic relationships, knowledge, patience and higher purpose, then you realize that prosperity is not by luck but by alignment with timeless laws, and whoever works with these principles will surely attract, sustain and multiply abundance in a way that leaves behind more than money. It leaves transformation. Wealth has always been a pursuit that captures the attention of men and women across generations, but the real secret to attaining it does not lie in luck, chance or mere hard work alone. It is anchored on principles that, when understood and practiced, guarantee results irrespective of location, background, or starting point. The journey begins with the transformation of the mind, because wealth is first conceived in thought before it is expressed in reality, and anyone who continually sees limitations, poverty, and impossibility will unconsciously attract those very conditions, while those who nurture thoughts of abundance, creativity, and productivity create an inner atmosphere for wealth to manifest. This shift in mindset is foundational because it becomes the lens through which opportunities are seen or ignored. Beyond the mind is the principle of value creation, because money is not something to be pursued directly. It is a reward system that flows toward problem solvers and those who meet needs. Every currency note in circulation testifies that someone somewhere provided a product, service, or idea that others deemed worthy of exchange, and this means the surest way to attract resources is to refine skills, polish talents, and deliver consistent excellence. However, wealth is not sustained by skill and value alone, for without discipline, the flow of resources will be wasted. Discipline in finances includes controlling desires, saving diligently, avoiding reckless spending, and investing wisely, because what you cannot manage, you cannot multiply. This is why many who suddenly come into wealth lose it quickly. They never learn to govern their appetites, and without structure, even abundance becomes a curse. Added to this is the principle of relationships, for wealth does not flow in isolation, but through men and networks, and access to the right person can sometimes deliver what years of labor could not. Relationships, however, are not manipulated, but nurtured through honor, integrity, and service, and when a man proves himself trustworthy, doors open to resources and opportunities that skills alone may not unlock. Another law that governs the journey of wealth is the pursuit of knowledge, for ignorance has bankrupted more people than lack of opportunity. What you do not know can keep you bound even when surrounded by resources, and this is why those who desire wealth must commit themselves to continuous learning, studying financial principles, seeking counsel from mentors, and exposing themselves to wisdom greater than their own. The wealthy are not always the strongest or most talented, but they are almost always the most informed, and information gives them an advantage to multiply whatever is placed in their hands. Yet even with knowledge, there must be patience, because true wealth is built line upon line, precept upon precept, and never in one day. Seeds planted today may take time to germinate, but if nurtured consistently, they eventually yield a harvest, so impatience becomes an enemy of prosperity. Those who faint in the days of small beginnings often miss the compounding rewards that time brings. Finally, the highest dimension of wealth is not acquisition, but purpose, because wealth used only for luxury and self-indulgence ends in emptiness, but when it becomes a tool for impact, it births legacy. When resources feed the hungry, educate children, build systems, and lift communities, they outlive the individual and bring fulfillment that material possessions cannot. True wealth is therefore not one secret, but a combination of principles, mindset, value creation, discipline, relationships, knowledge, patience, and purpose. And when a person aligns with these timeless laws, wealth ceases to be a distant dream and becomes a predictable reality that not only enriches their life but transforms the lives of many others. Wealth is not a mystery that favors a few lucky people. It is the result of principles that, when discovered and consistently applied, work for anyone regardless of their background or current condition. The first and most important foundation is the renewal of the mind, because wealth is conceived internally before it ever shows externally. A person who constantly sees lack, impossibility, and limitation will unconsciously sabotage opportunities, while one who trains the mind to embrace abundance, possibilities, and productivity will naturally align with prosperity. Every great change begins in thought, and this inner transformation positions an individual to recognize and attract opportunities. Once the mind is renewed, the next key is understanding that wealth is attracted by value. Money flows as a reward for solving problems, meeting needs, or providing solutions that others consider worthy of exchange. Every note in circulation is evidence of someone's contribution, and those who refine their skills, nurture their talents, and deliver excellence will never remain without resources. But wealth does not remain with those who have not mastered discipline. Discipline is the ability to manage desires, spend wisely, save intentionally, and invest productively. Many people rise quickly but fall just as fast because they lack self-control. It is not how much you earn but how much you retain and multiply that matters. Wealth without discipline is like pouring water into a basket. It always disappears. In addition to discipline, wealth requires understanding the power of relationships, because opportunities are tied to people, and access to the right person can shift a destiny faster than years of solitary effort. Relationships are currencies, and they are preserved by character, honor, and integrity.
integrity. The man who dishonors people may have skill, but doors will close against him, while the one who knows how to serve, respect and build alliances will find that resources and opportunities flow naturally in his direction. Still, relationships alone are not enough. Knowledge is indispensable. Ignorance keeps men poor even in environments of wealth, because money without wisdom is wasted. The wealthy deliberately seek knowledge, read books, attend trainings, and submit to mentors who have walked the path ahead of them. Information shortens journeys and prevents costly mistakes, and this is why knowledge is often more valuable than money itself. However, even with knowledge, the principle of patience is critical. Wealth does not happen instantly. It grows gradually like a seed planted in the ground. The process may seem slow, but consistency and diligence always yield fruit. Those who despise small beginnings often miss out on the compounding power of time. Patience stabilizes the pursuit of wealth, ensuring that one does not abandon the process in search of shortcuts that lead to destruction. Yet, beyond the principles of mindset, value, discipline, relationships, knowledge and patience, there is a higher dimension that gives true meaning to wealth, and that is purpose. Without purpose, wealth becomes empty, leaving behind only vanity and pride. The true measure of prosperity is not how much a person has, but how much they use what they have to impact others. When resources are used to feed the hungry, educate the young, build communities, and lift the less privileged, wealth transcends material possession and becomes legacy. Wealth with purpose outlives the individual and multiplies its influence across generations. This is why the pursuit of wealth must never end at personal luxury. It must evolve into responsibility and impact. The man who understands that money is a tool for transformation will never be poor, because his pursuit rises above greed into the realm of vision. When wealth is pursued and sustained this way, it is no longer a gamble but a predictable outcome, the natural result of aligning with timeless laws that govern abundance. Anyone who embraces this holistic view, beginning with the renewal of the mind and ending with purposeful impact, will discover that wealth is not reserved for a select few, but is accessible to anyone willing to align with these principles.
Wealth is not a product of chance or luck. It is the outcome of deliberate alignment with time-tested principles that govern increase and abundance. The first step is understanding that wealth is conceived in the mind before it is manifested in reality. Because your mindset is the lens through which you see opportunities or limitations. A person who is mentally conditioned to expect scarcity will unconsciously repel prosperity, while someone who embraces a mindset of abundance will naturally attract resources. When the mind is renewed, opportunities that were once hidden become visible, and what looked impossible begins to appear achievable. This is why the wealthy are not merely people with resources, but people who first built a wealth consciousness within. Beyond mindset, the secret of wealth is hidden in value creation, because money is nothing but a certificate of reward for solving problems. Every coin in circulation represents someone's ability to provide a product, service, or idea that people found worthy of exchange. Therefore, those who refine their skills, sharpen their talents, and commit to serving with excellence will find that money flows in their direction almost effortlessly. However, value without discipline cannot sustain wealth, and this is where many fail. It is not what you earn that guarantees your future. It is what you retain and multiply. Discipline means governing your appetites, controlling spending, planning your finances, and learning the principle of delayed gratification. History is full of people who rose to wealth quickly but fell into ruin just as fast because they could not govern themselves. Wealthy people are not necessarily those who make the most, but those who know how to manage, save, invest, and grow what they already have. This same principle extends to relationships, because resources and opportunities often flow through men. The right connection can deliver what years of effort cannot achieve, but such relationships are not built through manipulation. They are cultivated through honor, service, loyalty, and integrity. People are drawn to character, and wealth is often a byproduct of the networks one builds. To neglect relationships is to close doors, and to dishonor people is to shut yourself out of opportunities that money alone cannot buy. Even with relationships and discipline, ignorance is a silent enemy of wealth, because money in the hands of the uninformed is like water poured into a leaking vessel. Knowledge is the stabilizer of wealth, and those who desire financial abundance must commit to continuous learning. The wealthy spend time reading, researching, seeking advice from mentors, and acquiring financial intelligence, because what you do not know can destroy what you already have. Information shortens processes and prevents costly mistakes, making knowledge more valuable than money itself. Alongside knowledge is patience, because wealth does not grow overnight. It is built steadily, just like a seed that takes time to grow into a tree. Impatience pushes people into shortcuts that often lead to loss and regret, but consistency and diligence always pay off in the long run. Those who embrace small beginnings and remain steadfast discover that wealth compounds with time, producing results far greater than instant gratification could ever achieve. Finally, wealth without purpose is empty, because material possessions alone cannot satisfy the human heart. The highest dimension of prosperity is not luxury but impact, and this is the true test of wealth. When resources are used to educate the less privileged, build communities, feed the hungry, and create systems that uplift others, wealth takes on eternal value. Without this higher purpose, riches can leave one feeling unfulfilled despite having abundance. But when money becomes a tool for transformation, it outlives the individual and creates a legacy that generations remember. True wealth is therefore not one hidden secret but a synergy of principles: mindset, value, discipline, relationships, knowledge, patience, and purpose. Anyone who aligns with these principles will not only attract wealth, but also sustain it and multiply it in a way that brings joy, fulfillment, and lasting impact. Wealth is not a random event reserved for a chosen few. It is the result of principles that govern abundance, and those principles work for anyone who understands and applies them. The first and most important foundation is the renewal of the mind, because every transformation begins internally before it manifests externally. A person who is conditioned to see only lack and impossibility will always live within that reality, no matter the resources given to them. On the other hand, when an individual learns to embrace thoughts of abundance, productivity, and possibility, the mind becomes fertile ground for prosperity to grow. This is why the greatest wealth creators in history are not merely those who had access to capital, but those who first developed the right mentality. Shifting the mind from scarcity to abundance is the foundation of lasting wealth. Once the mind is prepared, the next principle is value creation, because money does not follow wishes, it follows solutions. Every currency in circulation is proof that someone provided a service, solved a problem, or offered a product that others found worthy of exchange. Those who refine their skills, polish their talents, and learn to deliver consistent excellence position themselves as magnets for resources. The world will always reward solutions, and when you choose to become valuable, money will pursue you rather than you pursuing money. But value creation is only one part of the equation, because without discipline, even great wealth can vanish. Discipline is the ability to govern desires, avoid wasteful spending, practice saving, and channel resources into productive investments. Many have risen to wealth but lack the capacity to sustain it, proving that true prosperity is not about how much you earn but how much you can manage and multiply. Another critical factor in building wealth is the principle of relationships, because opportunities often come through people. Access to the right connection can achieve in moments what years of struggle cannot, but relationships cannot be forced or manipulated. They must be nurtured with honor, integrity, service, and loyalty. People are doors, and those who learn to respect and serve others often gain access to resources far beyond their personal ability. Alongside relationships is the indispensable role of knowledge. Money in the hands of the ignorant is easily wasted, because ignorance is more expensive than failure. The wealthy are intentional learners who constantly study financial principles, seek mentors, and gain wisdom that keeps them ahead. Knowledge gives direction to resources and prevents mistakes that can destroy years of labor. To neglect learning is to embrace poverty, while wisdom shortens journeys and stabilizes progress. In addition to knowledge and relationships, patience is an irreplaceable ingredient in the journey to wealth. Real prosperity is not built in a day, it is built over time through consistency, diligence, and endurance. Just as seeds take time to grow into trees, wealth requires time to multiply and mature. Impatience often leads people to pursue shortcuts that end in regret and loss, while patience allows resources to compound steadily until they produce lasting results. This is why small beginnings should never be despised, for they are the training grounds where discipline, wisdom, and resilience are cultivated. Those who endure the process eventually enjoy abundance that cannot be shaken, because it was built on strong foundations rather than fragile shortcuts. Beyond all these principles lies the higher dimension of purpose, because wealth without purpose is empty and unfulfilling. The true measure of prosperity is not in cars, houses, or luxury, but in impact, what you do with your wealth to transform the lives of others. When resources are used to feed the hungry, educate children, build communities, and support noble causes, wealth transcends personal gain and becomes legacy. This is the level where money is no longer just a tool for comfort, but a weapon for transformation. True wealth lives beyond the individual, influencing generations and creating footprints that cannot be erased. Therefore, the secret of wealth is not found in luck or chance, but in the consistent application of timeless principles: mindset, value, discipline, relationships, knowledge, patience, and purpose. And anyone who aligns with these laws will not only attract wealth but sustain and multiply it in ways that bring fulfillment, joy, and lasting impact. Wealth is not a coincidence or the privilege of a few. It is the result of principles that consistently work when understood and applied. The journey begins with the transformation of the mind, because the mind is the true factory of wealth. If a person believes in scarcity, impossibility, and limitation, no amount of external support will keep them prosperous. But when the mind is renewed to embrace possibility, creativity, and abundance, such a person begins to see opportunities where others see obstacles. Wealth is conceived in thought before it manifests in reality, and this is why the right mindset is the first foundation for anyone who desires prosperity. The second pillar of wealth is value creation, because money is not pursued directly, it is attracted as a reward for solving problems. Every currency note represents an exchange for a product, service, or idea that brought benefit to someone. Those who commit to refining their skills, developing talents, and serving with excellence become magnets for resources. The world will always open its doors to men and women of value, but value alone does not guarantee sustained wealth, because without discipline, resources slip away quickly.
Discipline is the ability to govern desires, manage spending, and channel resources into productive investments. Many who suddenly came into wealth lost it because they lacked structure, proving that it is not how much you earn, but how much you retain and multiply that defines true prosperity. Wealth also responds to relationships, because opportunities often come through people. The right connection can open doors that hard work alone may never achieve. Relationships, however, must be cultivated with honor, loyalty, integrity, and service. People are not to be used but valued, and when trust is established, resources and opportunities naturally flow. Alongside relationships is the necessity of knowledge, because ignorance is one of the greatest enemies of wealth. Money without wisdom is like water poured into a leaking vessel. It will always disappear. The wealthy are deliberate learners who seek information, study principles, and submit to mentorship that equips them with strategies to preserve and multiply resources. Knowledge provides direction and stability, ensuring that money becomes a tool for growth rather than loss. Patience is another indispensable principle on the journey to prosperity. Real wealth is rarely built overnight. It grows like a seed that requires time to mature. The temptation of shortcuts has destroyed many lives, but those who embrace small beginnings and remain diligent eventually enjoy the compounding power of time. Patience produces resilience, teaches consistency, and allows resources to multiply steadily until abundance becomes inevitable. The process may appear slow, but it ensures that what is built will endure. Those who understand this principle never despise their current stage, for they know it is preparation for greater increase. Beyond the visible structures of mindset, value, discipline, relationships, knowledge, and patience lies the higher dimension of purpose, because wealth without purpose is vanity. True prosperity is measured not by how much is acquired but by how much impact it produces. When resources are used to educate children, feed the hungry, build communities, and support noble causes, wealth becomes more than comfort, it becomes transformation. A life that accumulates riches without blessing others may appear successful, but it leaves emptiness within. Purposeful wealth, on the other hand, creates legacy, influence, and fulfillment that cannot be bought with money. In conclusion, the secret of wealth is not a hidden mystery waiting to be discovered by chance. It is a predictable outcome of aligning with timeless laws. These laws include renewing the mind, creating value, exercising discipline, nurturing relationships, pursuing knowledge, embracing patience, and living with purpose. When combined, they form a system that attracts, sustains, and multiplies abundance. Anyone who chooses to live by these principles will find that wealth ceases to be a distant dream and becomes a practical reality. Such a life not only enjoys material blessings, but also leaves a mark on the world, proving that true wealth is never just about possession, it is about transformation and impact. Wealth is not an accident or a privilege given to some while denied to others. It is the product of aligning with principles that are consistent across generations and cultures. The first reality that must be settled is that wealth begins in the mind. A person who is trapped in thoughts of lack and impossibility will continue to reproduce those outcomes regardless of external support, while one who has renewed their mind to embrace abundance, creativity, and productivity will naturally attract opportunities and resources. The mind is the true birthplace of wealth, and until it is transformed, no lasting financial transformation can occur. The second principle is value creation, because money is not pursued directly, it is attracted by solving problems. Every currency note represents the reward for meeting a need, providing a service, or creating a solution that others were willing to exchange for. Those who dedicate themselves to sharpening their skills, nurturing their talents, and serving with excellence will never remain poor, because the world pays for value. The secret is not in chasing money, but in becoming someone who cannot be ignored in their sphere of influence. When you become valuable, resources begin to look for you. The third principle is discipline, because even though value can attract wealth, without discipline, it cannot be sustained. Discipline is the ability to manage desires, control spending, save consistently, and invest wisely. Many who came into sudden wealth lost it quickly because they lacked the character to govern themselves. Wealth is not just about acquisition, but preservation and multiplication. True prosperity is measured by how well resources are managed, not just how much is earned, and discipline ensures that money does not slip away like water through careless hands. The fourth principle is relationships, because access to people is often access to resources. Opportunities, platforms, and doors to wealth are usually tied to men, and the right connection can change a person's financial destiny faster than years of effort. Relationships must be built on honor, trust, service, and integrity. Those who disrespect people close the very doors that could have lifted them, while those who serve with humility and loyalty create bonds that release resources and opportunities. Wealth flows through networks, and relationships are often more valuable than money itself. The fifth principle is knowledge, because ignorance is a silent thief of wealth. Money in the hands of the uninformed is easily wasted. This is why the wealthy are deliberate students of financial principles, investment strategies, and timeless wisdom. They seek mentors, read extensively, and expose themselves to information that shapes their decisions. Knowledge provides clarity, shortens journeys, and protects from costly mistakes. Ignorance, on the other hand, ensures repeated cycles of lack, even when resources come. Wealth is preserved not only by what you have, but by what you know. The sixth principle is patience, because wealth is a process, not an event. Just as a seed requires time to grow into a tree, prosperity requires consistency and diligence over time. Impatience has led many into shortcuts that destroyed years of effort. But those who understand the law of gradual growth, embrace small beginnings, and remain steadfast. Wealth built in haste is often shallow, but wealth built with patience is stable and enduring. The compounding effect of time rewards those who do not give up too early. Patience ensures that the process of building wealth also builds the character needed to sustain it. The seventh and highest principle is purpose, because wealth without purpose produces emptiness. True prosperity is not measured by luxury or possessions, but by impact. When resources are used to feed the hungry, educate children, build systems, and transform lives, wealth transcends personal comfort and becomes legacy. Purpose gives meaning to money, turning it into a tool for transformation. Those who live only to accumulate eventually find themselves empty, but those who use wealth to serve a higher cause experience fulfillment and leave behind a testimony that outlives them. In the end, the secret of wealth is not one principle, but the alignment of all these laws: mindset, value, discipline, relationships, knowledge, patience, and purpose. And anyone who embraces them will not only attract wealth, but sustain and multiply it in a way that blesses both their life and the lives of many others.